There's a lot of following trends and listening to trends, or is it so much more than that?
I think it's a combination of listening to trends, but also being who you are. First of all, you need to know what's happening in the market. You need to know where you stand, but it's like what you do with that data that makes it impactful. It's super important to understand the trends. So again, doesn't mean you need to act in every single one, but you should be acting on the ones that are relevant for you as a brand.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WIM podcast. Women in Influencer Marketing is a first-of-its-kind exclusive networking group made up of inspirational women. This podcast is where we explore influencer marketing and get real about women in business. Find us wherever you download podcasts, and of course, you can always find us at iamwim.com. That's iamwim.com. Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the pod. For any of you who are new, giant warm welcome. And for those of you who listen on the regular, thank you for doing so. I really appreciate you guys. This week's episode, we have Kenner Archibald of Dash Hudson, a fellow New Yorker, CMO. Lots of really exciting things to say. We got into, of course, their product and the interesting things that they're doing in terms of social listening and data. But in addition to Dash Hudson and her work there, we got to know Kate on a more personal level, what she was like as a kid, her journey to becoming the CMO of a company. Her background is in beauty, which is really, really fascinating. And we got into all of it. So stick around. It's going to be quite the episode. But before we get into learning about Kate and chatting with her, I want to remind you guys we have our LA and New York experiences coming up so quickly. So June 20th is LA and July 27th is New York. These aren't events, guys. These are experiences. We've got food, we've got drinks, we've got conversations, networking, events. And of course, my personal favorite, we have gift bags. Gift bags. Who doesn't love a freaking gift bag? Anyways, I would be so excited to meet you guys in person, say hello, and to have you guys meet each other. Our experiences are pretty epic. It's we've done quite a few this year already, and we're going to continue to do more. We have more cities being announced soon. Of course, we know that a majority of you are on each coast. So some of you guys are actually flying into LA for VidCon. So come in a day early and meet with us. It's on the 20th, which is the day before VidCon starts. So June 20th, we'll see you there. And if you're going to VidCon, I'm speaking this year. So I don't have my date and time yet. As soon as I have it, I'll probably share it on social. So follow me at Jessie Grossman. And I would love to see you guys in person. It would make my day. I love, love, love meeting more members of our community. Just take this thing offline. So, about Kate Kenner Archibald. So, she is a seasoned international marketing executive with 15 years of experience in beauty marketing and technology. She advanced her career at the Estée Lauder Companies, contributing to the success of brands such as Tom Ford Beauty, Bobbi Brown, Estée Lauder, and La Mer. In 2021, she joined Dash Hudson as VP of Product Marketing and later became Chief Marketing Officer in 2022 to better align product positioning and marketing strategies for the company. She resides here in New York City with her family and enjoys outdoor activities in the Hudson Valley. I am super excited to welcome Kate Kenner Archibald. So, Kate, I am super excited to have you on today. I'm excited for our listeners to just get to know you a little bit better, get to know Dash Hudson as well. But first and foremost, welcome. And how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking me up on it. I think that a really fab place to start. We're going to learn about Dash Hudson. We're going to talk about, some new tools that you guys have released and all sorts of influencer marketing things. But I personally just love to get to know people better. And, influencer marketers, we're like our own breed. I think that it's a very special type of person that gets into this industry. And so I'd love to get to know you better. So, can you tell us about Kate, like going back to what kind of kid were you? And I don't know, maybe that'll give us some insight into how you ended up to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. What a question. For context, I grew up in New York City. I am definitely a city kid through and through. And I think growing up in New York, you have so much access to so many different things. And what really spoke to me as a kid was I loved my favorite after school activity. And I'm still trying to like reinvent this for my children at some point was going to the Met once a week and doing my own versions of paintings on the wall. I think I am a somewhat creative person, or I at least appreciate art and creativity. And that was definitely a passion of mine. In addition to art, which, again, was really something that I grew up doing as I got older. I think the two other areas that really helped define my high school career were math and sports. So I was really proud to be in the math club. I love math. I think it's very definite. It's very analytical and was a really nice complement to the creative side that I also enjoyed. And then sort of the third part that I really explored while I was a kid was sports. I come from a family of tennis players. I think I was born with a tennis racket in my hand or was told that I had to have a tennis racket in my hand. And so through that experience, I was often playing competitively and I had the opportunity to be the captain of my tennis team for 4 years and through all of high school. And I think that experience really shaped how I look at success today in business, how, everything is a team sport, right? And you all have to know what your goals are collectively together, and everyone plays a role in achieving those goals. So, for anyone who has a child who plays sports, whether or not they're the top athlete, I think the lessons that you learn being a competitive athlete, or in my case, a somewhat competitive athlete, did not make it much further than high school, really have a significant impact on your life later on, or at least it definitely did for me.
That's so interesting. I love that so much. Your kids, I think, are young as mine. And, I didn't grow up in sports, but I did grow up in the arts. So I can definitely relate to that. I'm so curious, though, because I do definitely hear this a lot. And I can't help but agree with what you're saying, which is just like growing up, in a competitive sport can absolutely really prepare you for later on in life. And that maybe camaraderie or, that hyper focusedness. Like, what would you tell your kids, like, as they're continuing to grow up and like exploring sports? Like, would you sort of guide them towards one sport over another? Or like, how would that work in your households?
Yeah, so I have a almost 9-year-old son, and a 6.5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son, and my 2-year-old's not there yet on the sports spectrum, but one day I promise he will be. So I think it's really important that, first of all, they find what they're interested in, they find their own passion, whether that be, for my son, it's skiing for sure. He's a competitive ski racer. For my daughter, she's taken a lot of interest in basketball, whatever it is, right? I think it's important that they find their passion and they really love what they're doing. And secondarily to that, hoping it's also a team sport. My older son also plays football, and like I love that he gets to see how important it is, again, to understand like, everyone plays a role in something. And in order to be successful, you all need to work together. And I think that's really the goal of sports for me, is to ensure that you get that type of experience.
You have, made your way through high school where you like, led your tennis team. So it seems like that for you, it wasn't necessarily just being on a team, but it was like, I'm going to lead my team. I'm going to be a leader. And so today, you're a leader at this incredible company called Dash Hudson. I know a lot of our community is familiar with Dash Hudson, but I think that it would be really great to sort of hear in your own words, like, what are you guys most known for? And like how our community can really get to know you guys even better.
Sure. So Dash Hudson is a social media management software, and we really help brands leverage social media to their advantage with our multi-channel insights and scheduling and content capabilities. So I think what makes us truly different is first and foremost, we are very visual first. So why am I at Dash Hudson? Thinking about my childhood, like, I love the intersection of creativity and analytics, and that's like exactly what Dash Hudson is, right? It is a social media software that is that intersection for all social media managers. So we provide those key data and insight points around what is happening in your community, what is happening in your content, and then how can you really listen and understand what the white space opportunities are, right? Because there's so much going on out there in social media that is often not caught or not heard, shall we say. And what I'm really excited and we'll get to this, I'm sure, in more detail later, is our new social listening product, where we don't just listen to words, which traditionally is how social listening was built, but we're also listening to visuals, and we're also reading what is going on in the visuals, which is a really exciting way to look at social listening in a different era, right? Social listening started 15 years ago, and we're excited to really bring you social listening 2.0, shall we call it?
Wait, I love that. So, can we get into that a little bit now? A little bit more about social listening? Because social listening, the concept in general, like, isn't anything new, but I'm really intrigued what you guys are doing with it now. So, could you tell our audience a little bit about some like new social listening tools that you guys released and how it's really new?
Sure. So we just launched social listening, and again, as I mentioned, social listening has been around for quite some time, but again, built in the era of text, right? Social listening was frequently leveraged for Twitter and then brought on to other channels. But we've kind of taken a stance of building it for the ability to pull in content, especially video and visuals, right? And then, of course, text. But, we all communicate differently today, right? I communicate with my husband oftentimes via pictures, or friends via pictures. And if that's how people are also, posting on social media, you're not necessarily going to catch what the story is. So, what makes our social listening tool different? What is kind of the opportunity? Social listening tools historically have also been very complex. I am a former user of social listening tools, and I can tell you firsthand, they're oftentimes not easy to use, and you're not really able to cut through the noise. So what our tool does is we really leverage our incredible, design. Honestly, we have the, rated on G2, the easiest to use platform. And what we are able to do is leverage that mentality and make sure we have the easiest to use social listening tool. So, if you want to go in and understand what people are saying about a certain topic, it's not going to take you 2 hours and a PhD to do so. Anyone can do it in a very quick manner. I think that's like a true first point of difference. A second point of difference, which is really interesting, and we're hearing from our customers, this is a truly strong point of difference. And I'm going to give an example of a brand that I used to work on. I previously had the opportunity to work on the brand La Mer, right? And so La Mer is a beautiful brand, but for social listening, it's actually quite a challenge because your name is also, in French, La Mer means the sea. So, you're also pulling in a tremendous amount of like excess content around the sea. And so, it's very hard to actually do the act of social listening. So, with our keywords capability, we're actually able to pull out imagery. So if you can actually input an image of what you don't want to populate, right? So you can put an image of the sea, and our artificial intelligence will then remove all of the images of the sea, and you'll actually be served the content that you really want to see, which is what people are saying about your product. So it's like really interesting example of how brands have been leveraging our tool and, saying it's no other tool, which is pretty exciting to see.
That is super exciting. And I just know that, like, we all know that the content has just evolved over the years, where, of course, it's been very visual, but now it's so video based, right? So, so it's really cool to hear that, like, there's a focus there, and that there's so many insights to glean from the content itself, in terms of like a visual capacity, which is really interesting. And so, I'm sure there are different types of customers that use Dash Hudson, but like in our community, we have, talent managers that could use tech in like their own way. We have agency people who would use your tech in their own way, and brands, et cetera, et cetera. So, who is your ideal customer if you have one, or can they all just sort of use Dash Hudson in their own way?
Yeah, what a great question. What I love about Dash Hudson is there is such a great use case for anyone and everyone. So for context, I was on a call yesterday with a talent manager and a 10 million plus follower creator, and she saw really great applications for the tool for her own self and how to build her brand. And as the talent agent, more often than not, we are working with brands and agencies. So I think we have a very diverse product that again focuses on your social media data and insights, but also your content, right? And so anyone who prioritizes content, and we all know that this day and age, like you can't not prioritize content, especially on social. So for anyone who's prioritizing content and where it matters, like that's our customer, right? Anyone who cares about social, who cares about how they show up in market is important for us, whether it's the creator themselves, which we're starting to really speak more to, managers, brands, of course, is our historical customer base. More and more, we're seeing agencies. But again, we have such a great tool to really elevate and improve how you can go to market across channels, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and I just prioritize those because short form video is just so important right now. Those are the places where we're seeing the most opportunity and what our customers are looking for.
I also think I can imagine at least that you guys are in like you have a very interesting vantage point, because I'm sure that people come to you being like, oh my God, I've got this problem or that problem. Can you guys solve it? Can you guys fix it? And I feel as if having that perspective, you're in this like really interesting place where there are so many opportunities coming your way day in and day out because of all those problems. Or at least that's like the optimistic way of thinking about it. Some people may be like, oh, all these problems, but I can imagine that you guys are excited to solve them. And so I'm curious though, what are some of those struggles that you hear that your clients or potential clients are experiencing pretty regularly? I'm curious if our listeners can relate to those struggles.
Sure. Yeah. I love actually being at this vantage point. To your point, like, we have over 6,000 handles of data. So, we get to interact with a lot of very different people in different industries, which again, like my history is I actually came from beauty and had an incredible experience there. But I'm loving right now just seeing many different industries. And something consistent that we see is, you know, how do I sell in short form video, right? I was just at Social Media Week last week and was speaking on stage, and someone actually in the audience asked that question, like, how do we even sell this in to my executives? And, leveraging our content segmentation tools or even our social listening tools, there are ways we can highlight like how, this will help brands sell things in. Additionally, to that point, we also try to quantify for our customers. Like, I think conceptually, and I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast can agree, like, social media obviously does have an impact on your bottom line, obviously hard to attribute. So we try to close that information gap with partnerships. So we've been partnering regularly now with Nielsen IQ to really highlight that data of, the brands that have stronger content on TikTok or Instagram, for example, do have better sales results. And oftentimes that's not such an accident. We found out last year that beauty brands within the first 6 months of joining TikTok actually had a 27% increase in sales versus brands who had low performing content. So again, it's like helping brands sell in why this is important and then how to sell in the content piece, but also answer that why with how it will actually impact your business. So, on a tactical level, I would say that is probably my favorite question to answer when we speak to customers. And then the second question we often are answering, this again is probably what prompted us to do social listening, is like, what are people saying about me and how can I leverage my, user generated content or influencer content. And, we have the unique ability to pull in user generated content and leverage our artificial intelligence to actually predict how that content will perform before you post it. So that's a huge point of difference for us as well. And something that, again, our customers love to understand, which is how will this user generated content or influencer content perform? What will this do for me? How will it impact my campaign? And so again, we're able to walk through the steps on how to understand that, how to position this content, and what makes the most sense to put out on social.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Just popping in to remind you to check out Women in Influencer Marketing, the membership community. So if you're enjoying this podcast, this is just a sliver of all that we are. So we have a mentorship program. We have casting opportunities. We have 24/7 community forums. We have events in real life, virtual, masterclasses, and so much more. Those women who join our membership have had amazing things to say. We've been around since 2017. And if you're not a part of it, you are absolutely missing out. So I encourage you to check out our website, iamwim.com, and learn all about us. iamwim.com. If you go to the events page also, you'll see that we have a regular event, Get the Most Out of Your Membership. It's for new members, but it's also for those of you who might be curious, like, what is WIM? Do I have a place there? How do I fit in? Come join. I'm there live. So are lots of other people. And it's a cool opportunity for me to teach you all about what we have to offer. Also, giving you this freebie, we actually give away a month free when you attend. So if you're interested in not only learning about WIM, but also experiencing a whole month free, definitely check it out. You can go to our website again. It's iamwim.com. That's iamwim.com. Sign up for our next event. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully around the WIM community. I'd love for you to dig into that a little bit more because that sounds really, really interesting. Like, what are the options? Like, what are people seeing? What are you sharing with your customers in that capacity?
Yeah, so every piece of content that comes into our platform that's earned content, right? So influencer content, UGC is tagged with our artificial intelligence. And it's like we're a very visual platform, right? So either it has a star or an upward arrow or a downward arrow. So a star indicates that that content will perform well for you. An upward arrow will perform not as well, but still will perform. And then a downward arrow is indicating that you probably shouldn't post it. You can post it if you need the content, but if you want to get strong results, our artificial intelligence is like 98% accurate. So if you want strong results, like you should really prioritize the content with the upward arrow or the star. So yeah, so oftentimes our brands, and this is how I, as a former customer, would leverage Dash Hudson. This really would help me be a data first marketer. Is we would, for example, do a campaign. This is a Tom Ford lipstick next to me, and we would either work with influencers or get users to post content or encourage users to post content actually. And then what I had the capability to do is pull in all this different content into one part of the platform, segment out this content, and then based off of the artificial intelligence, then I will post the content that seems right, whether it's from the brand, whether it's from the influencer, whether it's from UGC. And that really cut down a lot of barriers with creative, right? Because oftentimes it's challenging as a social marketer to work with the creative team. And this just becomes much more of like a data first social strategy. Not to say you can't post brand campaigns that may or may not be predicted to perform well, but to really ensure that you're always putting your best foot forward in social. This data truly helps you do so. So it's pretty exciting.
And where do you see are like the opportunities for growth in that area? Because I can imagine that you guys can do a lot, but I can also imagine there's like so much more to do, like especially, you mentioned like AI and there's so much more like advancements coming. So, I don't know, I guess like is there anything on the horizon that you can give us a first look at?
Yeah. So I think, artificial intelligence is always learning, right? So our AI, it's been learning for the last 6 years, but we, really apply it to all of our platform, which again is a unique point of difference. So I spoke to you a little bit about social listening. And so we do have the ability with the content that you're listening to and understanding how it's performing. Again, we do provide that overlay of artificial intelligence to understand if that content that people are speaking about your brand will perform or you as an influencer will perform. So I think that is a true key point of difference. In addition to that, we also have an opportunity to identify trends in the market. That is a great way to see, visually, what are people talking about? Are there visual trends happening based off of a particular topic? Jesse, give me a topic and I can kind of explain how that would work.
I don't know, let's say sports. Could we do sports?
Sure. Okay. So, like, we can look at the term sports and then we'll be able to pull in, right, your traditional social listening, which is sentiment, how is it performing? But then what we can do is we can actually segment out what are like the key visual trends with sports. We spoke about tennis. Is tennis and pickleball imagery popping up much more so than football, right? Football season's over. So maybe football is not as popular right now. So it gives us the visual ability to understand not just what people are saying in text, but also what are people showing in visual. Again, something that people really haven't been looking at before. So when you go to market, Jesse, let's say you want to do an influencer partnership with Nike, right? And you want to say, what are people saying about sports? And, you could suggest, I want to do a tennis partnership because I know tennis is super popular right now. Summer is about to happen. People love to play tennis in the summer. And they're all wearing the new hot color is green because of, this new influencer wore a green outfit, right? So there are a lot of things, whether an influencer, whether you're a brand that you can pull from this data to help make very strategic decisions to impact your content and creative strategies.
There's a lot of following trends and like listening to trends, or is it so much more than that?
I think it's a combination of listening to trends, but also, being who you are, right? I think any good brand, first of all, you need to know what's happening in the market. You need to know where you stand, but it's like what you do with that data that makes it impactful, right? So I think it's super important to understand the trends. That again, doesn't mean you need to act in every single one, but you should be acting on the ones that are relevant for you as a brand.
No, I think that's interesting. I ask because, if you go on Instagram and search like, you know, how to grow on Instagram or how to grow on TikTok or any of those, like people will tell you all the time to just like follow trends. And I think that, brands are also trying to hop on any trends that they can. And I wonder if, the data to dig into is what trends to follow or predicting trends or just digging into your audience. And I think, I guess, to your point, like there's so many variables where it depends on what you're listening to and if that's relevant to you and your brand story and all that. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting to just like the data tells a story and there's so many stories to be told. And I think it's really interesting to see like what direction do we go down? Because I can imagine there's so many different directions to go down. And as a company, I guess like I appreciate when we even first started this conversation, you're like, Dash Hudson makes it really easy to find these things because sort of what I'm just even describing, I'm like, well, that's getting a little complicated. And there's just so much data there to look at. What do I pay attention to? What do I focus on? So, like, how does your team help with that aspect of it?
Right. So our customers are really enabled to be able to help identify trends. And I think there's like two kind of types of trends that you're sort of touching on. So one is like this macro trend, whether it's, again, I'll go back to tennis, right? Tennis could be its own trend, right? And so maybe that might impact if you're at a photo shoot, the type of sports that you're highlighting. If you're highlighting a new face cream that could be leveraged, outdoors and is good for with SPF, right? So that's like one macro trend. Then there's more of like a micro trend I would call, which is, what sound should I be leveraging? What imagery should I be using? Is it Pedro Pascal? Is it, the new Taylor Swift song? So we have the ability also in our product for TikTok to understand what are the trending sounds. And I think that micro trend is highly important. Um, you know, Being on trend within your particular channel is definitely a great way to drive engagement. But also ensuring that you're aware of what's happening outside of your immediate world and what people are speaking about in the ether. So it's really that balance between the two. And then the third pillar is like who you are as a brand and where does that work, right? It's always a struggle for what to prioritize.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that so much. I'd love to dig into a little bit more of the behind the scenes as well. Because, right now you're in this really wonderful leadership role. And I know that, some people listen to these episodes for a variety of different reasons. I can imagine that some people are going to tune into this one being like, oh my gosh, like it's really incredible what Kate has achieved. Like perhaps I can learn something from her to follow in her footsteps. And I want to give our listeners that view of you as well. So, if you could share like both a highlight and a low light of your career, I think that it would be really interesting to hear. So, if you could share that with our listeners, that would be amazing.
Sure. I would say honestly is like I'm really excited to be in the position I am today. I'm honored to lead such an incredible team and be able to have the agility and opportunity to make an impact on not just our own business, but the industry at large. That's really what I love about what I can do at Dash Hudson. It's really make an impact. And I would say I've had a lot of experience and, I don't believe in low lights. Like, I really don't. I think every experience gives you something. And who you are as a person in your career is highly impacted by the experiences that you've had previously, right? So, while not every experience is going to be perfect and not every experience is going to be great, you just have to learn from what that experience gave you. And I'll give it one example is I had a year where I was in a somewhat challenging role, but I knew from that role, like really didn't like this one part of the business. And I knew that that's not something I am personally strong at and didn't feel like I could make a difference. And so going forward, I kind of knew not to go in that area. And like, I really truly believe everyone's career is a journey, and just knowing what you don't like and what you're not strong at is equally as important as what you do like and what you are strong at. So I'm going to flip that one around. I think all experiences are good experiences.
Well, because you can learn from them. So, very, very valid point. I'm sure you've been given lots of professional advice along the way. Has there been a piece of advice that you just think was unhelpful that probably the person who gave it to you thought was very helpful, but you're like, I'm going to put that aside? Something that, like, maybe, was the worst piece of professional advice you were ever given. What was that?
Yeah. Look, I think I've been fortunate enough to have many mentors or many honest conversations. And I think I do have a lot of ambition. And I think the only kind of challenging conversation I had at one part of my career, and again, it goes back to like a learning experience, which is, clearly wasn't the right place for me at that time, was, ambition was definitely not valued in that place, right? It was definitely not a characteristic that was, helping the business grow in that area. So I think the worst piece of advice I received was, don't be so ambitious. But again, I think it was just a piece of advice that I received that helped me realize that it wasn't the right place for me.
And what do you think that was about?
I think there are certain types of roles and certain types of functions that lead a business, and then there are certain types of functions that support a business, and certain personalities fit those business types. I really do believe it has to do with the culture of what you're trying to accomplish. And, again, it just goes back to some roles, patience and compliance is the number one asset. So, again, it goes back to what your goals are and what you can achieve in that role.
Patience and compliance. Interesting. And like if you could sort of like taking all the learnings that you've learned over the years and having, gone through your professional journey that you have, what are some of the characteristics if you could create your dream team? Like what attributes would your teammates have on that team?
Sure. I mean, I think I do feel very lucky today, and I feel like I do have that dream team. I think what I love about the team at Dash Hudson is, we lack that sort of red tape, right? We set a goal and we kind of just go after it, and everyone's all hands on deck. I think that's what's really important. Self educating, self starting, and really going after something together as a team is really what is highly important. And leaving egos behind, I think that is a huge win, right? Like we're all here for a greater good and identifying what that greater good is and, you know, that team mentality, being all in it together.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I always like to ask this question, especially people who have been in the space for a while. Are there any tools, resources, like a newsletter you love, or person that you're like, follow this person on LinkedIn? Is there any resources that you can share? A social media class, like whatever it is there a resource or a tool or person that you can suggest that our listeners follow or check out?
So I am a huge fan of Maggie Sellers. Maggie is a great influencer in the social space. She seems to always know everything that's going on and just gives great feedback and anecdotes on how to leverage social, how to leverage the right tools. So huge, huge fan of Maggie Sellers.
And where does she sit, like, in the ecosystem? What side of the industry is she on?
So she, I believe, has brand experience, and she also is a industry sort of creator herself. So yeah, she has kind of both sides where she is a creator, but she also has worked with brands, and I believe she still works with brands, D2C brands. And yeah, I think her perspective is just highly interesting, and her content on TikTok is fantastic.
Oh, I love a TikTok content creator, so I'm definitely gonna check her out for sure. Thank you so much for recommending her. My last question is, I'm sure some of our listeners would love, love, love to get in touch with you. Some people prefer email, some people prefer LinkedIn, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. What's your preference and how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Sure, I'm always happy to chat. I love talking anything social. So you can either reach out to me on LinkedIn, Kate Kenner Archibald. And if you want to learn more about Dash Hudson, you can just request a free trial on our website or a demo. We now offer 2-week free trials. So I'd love to hear anyone's feedback about the product, but always feel free to get in touch. I'd love to chat with anyone.
I love a free trial, and I know our audience does too. So I really appreciate that you guys offer that now. I feel like some of the best tools have that, right? Because you're like, we're just super confident in what we have and what we offer. So, like, just check it out for yourself, dive in. I feel like the companies that have that, I'm like so much more likely to end up actually using. Everyone's different in that capacity. Like, I really need to like get my hands wet. There's only so much that you can hear secondhand about a product. So I love that you guys offer that. We will definitely drop links to get in touch with you, links to check out Dash Hudson in our show notes. So, Kate, thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with us and our community. And for everyone who is tuning in, we will see you guys next week.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. And I look forward to hearing from the community.
If you enjoyed this episode, we gotta have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at iamwim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we could ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.
Tune in next week.